time we turned around, we had more people begging to be let inside. I was working 18, 20-hour days, getting paid for only half of that. Sometimes I'd be so tired, I would just sleep right there, at the hospital. Even finding an extra cot to rest on was hard work. I'd have to go up to the 5th floor. You never wanted to go to the 5th floor. The 5th floor is where they kept the, how shall I say, troubled individuals. Seeing as how I was new and a woman, they try to keep the nurses away from floor number 5. There were only a couple patients up there, but the ones that stayed there had TB real bad. So bad they had to try all kinds of new therapies and medicine, some real top secret stuff they were hoping would work so they could start giving them out to all other sick folk. I remember the first time I slept on floor number 5. It was real late. If I tried biking home, I would have wrapped myself around a tree, so I thought better of it and decided I'd crash down on the first open cot I spotted. We had 2 security guards back then, Chuck and Buck. Chuck would patrol the outside, Buck would patrol the inside. I don't know which one was spookier. As much as I love nature and whatnot, those hills after sunset, something was off. Don't know quite how to put my finger on it. You never felt like you were alone out there. And the inside, Lord have mercy, I don't know how Buck did it. When I got up to the 1st floor, all the lights were out. I tried tiptoeing, and then I heard that noise. I couldn't tell which door it was coming from. Whoever it was, they were in so much pain. But then the pain turned into something else. It was as if the pain became joy. And then I heard this weird kind of laughing. Still, I could never tell where it was coming from. The sounds on that 5th floor would bounce around the walls. The way we had it set up back then was that we had 8 patients on each floor. But then the patients on the 5th floor started going kind of crazy. That's when we had to try new therapies to make them feel better. I remember one day I had to go up there and help keep one of the patients restrained. Lance Dumond. He couldn't have been older than 21, bowl-cut hair, real skinny arms, but these wide thighs. His body looked like the number 6. So they had me come up to the floor 5 to try to hold Lance down while they injected him with his medicine. Apparently, Lance had sliced Buck's arm with his toenail. Can you imagine the fungus that must have been inside Lance's toenails? Ugh! I'm holding Lance down, and the main doctor, Dr. Irwin, he's trying to find the vein to stick in the needle, but he's having trouble finding a vein, and I'm using every damn bone I got trying to hold this fella down. I remember Lance turning to me. He hadn't looked at me once, not once, the whole time I was there. And then, right as the needle went in, he looked straight into my eyes. What's real strange is, it was almost like I could feel the sedative going into Lance's body. Time just kind of slowed down. I felt this real warm breeze kind of flow through my legs up to my belly. I couldn't hear nothing for at least 30 seconds. Then I heard this loud finger snap from Dr. Irwin, who was trying to snap me out of it. So I turned to look at Lance, and he was fast asleep. They rolled him out of there into his room. That was the last time I ever saw Lance. Wasn't the last time I ever heard his voice, though. That night, when I went to sleep on the 5th floor, we had this little common room. We had one on each floor for the patients to hang out, talk, and whatnot, so I figured it would be a good place for me to get some shut-eye. The moon was real bright. I remember that, too. The silver moonlight seemed to make the whole floor glow. It was something, having the glowing floor to walk on, but meanwhile the walls were pitch black. You couldn't see nothing against the walls. So I tried to get comfy on this little love seat using my jacket as a blanket. I had my eyes shut no more than 10 seconds when I heard that little laugh. At first I thought it was Lance. I sprung right up. Nothing. Maybe Chuck or Buck were playing a trick on me, but they wasn't there either. Just me. and whoever was there making that sound. I didn't sleep a wink after that. The night will really make you appreciate the day, especially at Waverly. You wouldn't believe how many people we had to turn away. That became my job during the daytime, having to apologize to these poor families with sick people, sometimes kids, a lot of times kids, who wanted us to take their loved ones in, but we couldn't. We ain't got no room for them. The ones that did get inside, can't say they were the lucky ones, spending all day alone in these rooms with Dr. Irwin or his assistant, Gertrude. I'd be making my rounds trying to serve water and food to these patients, and I would hear these awful wailing sounds, the pain that these patients was in, all day, screaming, shrieking, groaning, moaning, and then it'd get real quiet. Not just quiet, I mean silent. Like that time when I was holding Lance down, and he looked at me with them eyes, them black eyes. Within about a month, we lost so many patients to tuberculosis, we had to hire these construction guys to build this little tunnel. It was a passageway, underground, that let us move dead bodies from the hospital to this outside area into the woods, where this driver would load them up into the truck and take them away. The reason we had to make this tunnel was the patients who were at Waverly. They'd be in their rooms, common areas, wherever, and they would see me or one of the other nurses rolling past them with this dead body under a sheet or a gurney. All day. They'd be trying to get better, think positive, be happy, and then another body, another gurney, another reminder from the Reaper. He was coming for you, so don't get too comfy. Can you imagine? Lord have mercy. I didn't spend much time with Dr. Irwin or even his assistant Gertrude. Personal time, that is. They'd give me instructions and whatnot, but it was always business. I got to know the other nurses a little bit. By that time, we had close to 25 nurses on staff, all running around, trying to keep up with Father Time, who remained undefeated. I got real close with one of the nurses, Loretta. She was older. I'm guess 50. She had to go to work because her husband got sick. From what? Yep, you guessed it. She had kids and grandkids to feed. All I had was my own mouth to worry about. My dad wanted me to get married after college, and my mom wanted whatever my dad wanted. Seeing how I had 3 brothers who were off building railroads, they didn't pay me enough attention. I didn't complain none. I wanted to get into healthcare. What a good way to make your money, helping folks. Even though it never felt like I was. One patient, this little girl, Mary, she was sweeter than pie. They dropped her off at Waverly on her birthday. Can you imagine? On her 8th birthday. I snuck her a little muffin when no one was looking that afternoon. I let her eat it outside. Dr. Irwin would have got mad if he saw her eating it before lunch. A lot of times lunchtime wasn't really lunchtime. That's when he would make his rounds and do check-ins with everyone. I knew the only time this little girl was going to have something resembling a cake was when no one was looking. That was the best part of my job, taking patients outside, talking to them, getting to know them. A bunch of patients were from Louisville at first, but then we'd get patients from all over. And not just Kentucky, I'm talking about different states. They heard this was the place for healing. That might have been selling it a bit. I didn't see much healing. I saw quite the opposite. These were the little moments that made it worth it. Letting people soak in the sun a little bit, till Dr. Irwin or Gertrude would call him back to do tests, monitor progress, try different medications, whatnot. Mary, though, I took a shine to her. She was just so sweet, so innocent, and so damn young. 8 years old. I couldn't even remember being 8. That's how long it had felt. The other nurses and even Dr. Irwin saw how good I was with kids, so they let me be the one to monitor their health and whatnot. Take them outside, make sure they were fed, hydrated. Most of the kids didn't last too long, sadly. TB was the real devil when it came to children. Mary fought a good fight, though. She lasted nearly 6 months. You can imagine how awful it was. At the end, when you could tell she just didn't have much time left, each day it would get a little worse, till that one day it rained. So I couldn't even take her outside. We had to just sit in her room. She could barely talk. I just sat by her bed, squeezing her hands, till I felt it go cold. That was the most common feeling in Waverly. Cold. No matter how hard the sun came beating down, it just felt cold. Funny, they say hell is filled with fire and brimstone. Every time I touched death, it was colder than ice.
In the heart of the open fields we stand. Every moment with you feels grand. Stars above, we write our story in the sand. You and me, forever hand in hand. How could I not love you with all I got? Dreaming of you all around the clock.
I was on the verge of something other. It had been 2 years, 2 full years. I couldn't even tell you how many bodies. That's what people started to feel like. Bodies. They'd come in, didn't matter their age. It was just a matter of time before the good old Reaper man came for some house cleaning. By that time, the only people that were still around were me, Buck, Dr. Irwin, and Gertrude. All the young nurses who had started with me had gotten married and moved on. Loretta, dear, sweet Loretta, had died on the job under circumstances to this day that don't make a lick of sense. She had agreed to stay late one night and then had a heart attack while cleaning up on the 5th floor. She was so excited to take off the following week, her first vacation, because her son was coming back into town. The whole family was going to get together, she was going to cook, had this whole big meal planned out, and that night she just dropped dead. Without no warning signs or nothing. I remember walking into work the next morning, that pit in my stomach when I heard the news. Every day since, I think she'll still be there in the morning to greet me and ask if I want some coffee. But it never happened. I still hope, though. Ain't it funny how much hope matters when you never paid it no mind before? Buck was now a patient in the hospital. I couldn't get a real straight answer on him either. One night, I was walking by room 502 and he was inside, tied to the bed. At first I thought it was some mean prank. Buck was the kind of guy who loved scaring nurses, especially on the 5th floor. He'd hide somewhere late at night, pop out when least expected. This wasn't no joke. I remember, clear as day, walking into his room, calling his name. He didn't hear me. He didn't hear nothing. Dr. Irwin walked in after me and said Buck had gotten the bug. That's what we called TB by then. As if it was nicer or shorter. It wasn't neither of the two. Dr. Irwin told me to leave so he could give Buck his medicine. The size of the needle that Gertrude was holding, that thing was bigger than my arm. Right before I left his room, I turned back. Buck was staring right at me. I remember how cold his doorknob felt after I walked out. The one person I wished would go had somehow stayed. Chuck. Chuck had grown close to Dr. Irwin. He would regularly stay late and help him and Gertrude. When days would run too long, Chuck would agree to stick around after hours and help with therapy sessions. By now, Chuck had a new car. He didn't even have a car back at the beginning. He would walk to the train station. Now he was strutting around like he owned the place. He'd try to make it on the nurses, hoping to create an honest woman out of one of them. He got fresh with me one or more times than I could count, that's for sure. One time, I had enough, so I told Dr. Irwin. He said it would help if I wore longer skirts. I had been sending him the wrong signals. Gertrude agreed and modeled her skirt, which nearly cupped her ankles. That was that, I suppose. Either way, Chuck left me alone. But sometimes I'd walk out at night and I'd see him standing by a tree out back smoking a cigarette, just watching me walk. Talk about creepy. Chuck fit that to a T. I didn't sleep good no more. I'd be tossing and turning all night, wake up in a sweat. I started feeling like one of our patients that I had to hold down so Dr. Irwin could give him medicine. I never slept clean anymore. I always wake up around the same time, 2 in the morning, 2:37 to be precise. Out of breath, I'd walk into the kitchen, trying not to wake my roommate, chugging water as if I got pulled out of the desert. This is why I was on the verge of something other. The knots in my brain got so twisted that sometimes I'd wake up and think someone was in my room, usually near my mirror, sometimes by my window. A couple times I'd wake up on my back and I could feel someone standing in the corner. Just an outline, a hollow figure. I had to quit. No money was worth losing my marbles. Thank you for the opportunity. That's what I told Dr. Irwin. He said how much he had appreciated my time and dedication. He asked if I could stick around until the end of the week, give him and Gertrude enough time to find a replacement. I said it would be fine. I had been there for 2 years. I was half sleeping anyway. What bother would 2 more days be? The last day was long. Lord have mercy. They was trying to burn me out before I hit the Infinite Road. 2 nurses actually quit that very day. They were so fed up with working overtime and getting no benefits that they walked out hand in hand. I had dreamed of doing that very thing since my first week, and here these 2 were doing it on my second last day. They was about to make some eager fellas very happy, living out their days raising kids. That wasn't my cup of tea. I was gonna make something of myself, somehow, some way. Not here, though, as far from here as my sore legs will take me. It was getting dark. Most of the staff had gone home already. I whipped up my usual dinner of rice cakes and peanut butter sandwich. Delicious, I know. Earlier that day, a sweet old man named Leonard had passed away. We had to wheel him out during lunch. The driver who usually took the bodies had been replaced. Normally it was Marcus, who I got on with quite well. He once told Chuck to mind his own manners after he got fresh with me while I was stocking the restrooms. Marcus seemed unfazed by the bodies. Can you imagine living life so filled with death that the sight of it meant nothing? Death had lost meaning. I was almost there. That's why I had to get out before life and death had become interchangeable. This new driver, he was much younger than Marcus, skinny too, like a pencil. Had one of those real thin mustaches that kind of leapt towards the nose. Of all the days for Marcus to go, it had to be this one. Such is life at Waverly, if you could call it life. I was headed up to the 5th floor. It was quiet on the 2nd floor, quieter on the 3rd. And the 5th? You could hear someone blink from down the hall. I had never heard it this silent before. Normally it would be bursting from the seams with groans, moans, and only the devil knows what else. Tonight, nothing. I was supposed to meet Dr. Irwin in room 502. This was supposed to be my last service for the night. I pulled on the door handle, but it didn't budge. It was cold. Real cold. And wet. I knocked twice and said hello. Nothing. Not a peep. The light above me went out. I heard something in the common room. Sounded like footsteps. I went on over and saw that the common room light was off. I tried turning it on. Nothing. Another light behind me went out. There were now only 2 lights on from me to the stairwell door, which looked and felt a million miles away. I heard that noise again. Patter-patter. I let out a big hello. If this was Chuck messing around, I was going to lasso his nuts and serve him to the ranch hand. But then I saw her, sitting on the love seat. It was Mary. Sweet little Mary. She had her back turned to me. I froze. Mary? Sniffling. She was sniffling. This couldn't be real. I was hallucinated. Not a clean night's sleep in months will do that to you. I had hundreds of patients who would tell me that very thing. It was one of the most common symptoms. Once they couldn't sleep good no more, they'd wake up in the middle of the night, start seeing things. Dr. Irwin would assure them that it was perfectly normal. He said it so calmly. As their sanity crawled away, his smile would grow brighter. I started to walk towards Mary. If I was going to hallucinate, I had to at least see how this was going to play out. It was just a dream, right? You can get hurt in dreams. I must have passed out on the cot, and this is where my brain drove me once my lid shut. I touched her gently on the shoulder. She was cold and wet. Very slowly turned around. Just her face. The rest of her body stood still. And then Mary's face started to tilt. I could hear it cracking like a tree branch in slow motion. It would pause and then tilt more. Each time it tilted further, I could hear her neck cracking more. I reached out to stop her, and then her neck snapped off. Her spine was now sticking out of her shoulder. I fell backwards onto the floor. She stood up, her head now dangling by her hip like a keychain, swaying back and forth. When she moved towards me, the whole left side of her body began to slowly split open. Her skin melted off the bones and dripped onto the floor like wax. I got up and ran as fast as I could towards the hallway. Within 5 steps, I had to stop. The hallway was packed with bodies, standing upright, pale as winter sky. Their faces were sucked in, but their eyes were bulging out, dressed in their patient gowns, their feet tilted up, their hands bent inward, their mouths hanging down in front of their chins as tiny eels began to spill out. All at once they began walking towards me. As I took half a step backward, I felt that blistering tiny hand on my shoulder, but it was coming from above me. I could feel Mary levitating from behind me as I saw room 502 swing wide open. I ran inside and shut it quickly. It was pitch black. My heart was like a machine gun, and then it went cemetery silent again. Until I heard something from nearby. Shh. I slowly turned around, keeping my back glued to the lime green wall. Laying in bed, striped down, was Loretta, staring right at me. There was no white in her eye, just black. I don't know why, but I called out her name. Loretta? Again, she said it. Shh. She continued hushing even though her mouth was opened up. Her top lip engulfing her forehead as her face caved in, swallowing it from inside. Her jagged teeth now risen to the surface of her skull. Her skin and neck had been pushed down to her elbows. Her eye sockets popped out like corkscrews. I could feel hands from behind me, the cold door clawing at me. I turned. There were faces, outlines of faces from nameless lost souls sliding up and down the door, screaming in unison. I could see something emerging out of Loretta's throat. It was a skull, a large, twisting, bloody, pus-filled skull. Buck. It was Buck's skull. And then a hand. Grotesque, ashy, black hands. As he crawled out of Loretta's throat, all of her bones began to snap, one by one, sounding like an accordion being torn apart by the core. She looked as if her mouth was giving birth to what Buck had become after he descended to the other side, a side that this place felt like a portal to. I fell down and slid over to the corner, wrapping my arms around my face and rocking back and forth. This had to be a dream. This had to be a dream. This had to be a dream. 12 days. That was the length of time it would take to get to Kentucky to Italy. The Italians were in mid-war with the Ottoman Empire, and I wanted to get as far as what used to be my home as possible. There were plenty of hospitals in Italy that would need my expertise right now, and I was willing to leave behind what little I had to make a new home for myself. I had a lengthy reference letter from Dr. Irwin and another written by Gertrude. Their letters went on about how courteous and cordial I was with the patients, the extra time and energy I put in during the off hours, the ease at which I handled the cold brutality of the healthcare profession. They were nicer on paper than they had ever been in person. I couldn't help but assume that part of their willingness to part on good terms had stemmed from the fact that their facility had been, to put it mildly, hell. I was heading into a war zone, and I felt relief. Can you imagine that? Seeking solace in war? I would periodically check in with my old employer. Never directly. I would conduct independent research to see if anyone had ever experienced something similar to what I had during that last night. Turns out they had. Not one or two. There were dozens upon dozens of stories that reported similar sightings over the years that reinforced that what I saw that night was real. Each story was shot down as desperate pleas for attention, as if announcing to the world that you've entered lunacy would make you more appealing. They would group these innocent folks into a big bubble known as crazy. If you saw a ghost, a shadow, something in the sky, you were crazy. End of diagnosis. But I was not crazy, and if I was not crazy, what did it make all the other people who saw shadows rise, just as I had that night of the 5th floor? The night that forever made me believe that there is, in fact, an afterlife, and I will do everything in my power to avoid it. To my dying breath, I will believe that what I saw was, in fact, real. That when Dr. Irwin found me shaking inside room 502 alone, it was not, as he put it, psychological breakdown inspired by trauma. No, it was not that at all. It was something from another world, one which does not belong to us. On one side of our collective coin, we could hold a newborn baby in our arms and see the meaning of life through its eyes. We were given a new capability for love, generosity, compassion.
On the flip side of that same coin comes the realization that if you see enough death, it begins to lose meaning, at which point your life melts into that which belongs to the shadows. Blessed are those who will never understand what I'm referring to. I hope that you and all those you hold dear listen to my story simply as a campfire tale, something to spook the kids so they don't stay up late, something to tickle the feathers of close friends and comrades. But know this. In 1926, Waverly Hills was expanded into a massive self-contained complex designed to handle hundreds of patients. The new building included long, open porches and balconies to allow fresh air exposure, and it was designed to house up to 400 patients at a time. That's right, after I left, they expanded. It's estimated that over 8,000 people died at Waverly Hills during its time as a tuberculosis sanatorium. The exact number is difficult to confirm due to the secretive nature of how deaths were handled, but it's known that the death rate was high, especially in the years before treatments improved. I could only tell you what I saw, and you could only choose to believe what you want. Let my story be a warning. Shadows do not always stay hidden in the ground below us, not when you present them with an opportunity to step through the world, into your shoes, through your eyes. We are the beacons, for good and evil, for light and dark. To this day and every other, I will close my eyes praying that I will never see what I saw in room 502. I pray for you and your loved ones, because to know that this other world exists tells me that there is in fact a balance that must be stored. By who and for how long remains to be seen, but I intend to keep the shadows below me for as long as my feet shall walk the earth. Lord have mercy.
When the heavens fall, the skies turn to gray, I'll be standing here, won't let love slip away. Hold me close tonight, hold me close tonight, while the fire's inside. Darling, stay with me through this darkest night. Darling, stay with me through this darkest night. As the hellfire rages and shadows will dance, you'll find comfort here, won't lose this romance. Hold your head in mine as the ashes fly high. Darling, stay with me